Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending our session today on the lucrative ROI of technical education. I'm Chris Atterbury with Data Intelligence. Just a few things before we get started. A recording of this presentation and the deck will be available upon request. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to post them either in the Q&A section or in the chat section, and we will respond. If we do not have time to get to all questions, we will follow up with you to make sure that you get an answer. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Whitekin, who is the Chief Product Officer at Data Intelligence. Steve?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about the title of our session is The Lucrative ROI of Technical Education. My name's Steve Whitekin. I'm the Chief Product Officer for Data Intelligence. We are a data analytics company focused mainly on higher education. With me today is Jason Krantz. Jason, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jason Krantz, founder of Labor Titan. We help industry, education, and government understand local labor and market pay trends and also clearly communicate the value of different educational paths.
Great. And today, our agenda today, what we're going to go over, we're going to talk about a couple different topics here, but we're going to start off by talking the current state of higher education and what is happening there. And then what we want to do is get into the trade careers and understand what's going on now and what we see upcoming. And then talk about, which is, I think is a very important topic for higher education, the return on investment for a trade career. And then we'll finish up with some next steps that people can take who are interested in learning more about this topic. So let me start with the current state of higher education. As most people know, higher education is going through a transformation. There are a couple things that are occurring now that are influencing this. Let me start with just a couple themes that are happening that are really transforming how higher ed is, what's affecting higher ed. The first is you can see that little icon of a cliff. So you may have heard this term, the enrollment cliff or the demographic cliff. What that means is that there is a decrease in the number of students leaving high school that are available to go to college. So what that really means for higher ed, there's a smaller pool of students prospective students to join their school. Second is, and this has been going on for a few years now, is there's a question of the return on investment or the cost of higher education. I think a lot of you are probably aware of the financial aid kind of crisis. A lot of people are just questioning whether or not the cost is worth it, okay? And thirdly, employers are starting to change their perspective as well. A lot of employers now are looking for people coming to them with specific skills rather than just a four-year degree. A lot of places are dropping the need for a four-year degree. They want to know you have tangible skills you can bring to their place of employment. This here just shows kind of graphically what I was talking about as far as the cost. You can see this across, if you start from about 20 years ago to now, in almost all sectors of higher ed, they've seen a significant increase in the cost, anywhere from 13% to about 57%, depending upon what type of institution you are. And why that's important is that's driving a lot of, again, question about the return on investment. That said, what I'd like to do now is have Jason jump in here and talk a little bit what he's seeing from his perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to echo a lot of what you've said thus far in these macro trends of really getting clear on what are we going to get out of our educational investment. I think one of the big macro level trends that has unfolded is technology has made a number of very viable alternatives available. In our parents' generation, people, if you wanted to get an education, college or going somewhere physically was the only option that existed. That's not the case now. You can get many extremely high quality educational experiences digitally now. So that fundamentally alters the ROI equation that is unfolding right now in front of us. And so the thing is that this digital transformation has happened fairly quickly relative to what education has seen historically happen. And so, reversing this perspective trend requires, the institutions to prevent like really clear case on here's why you should come to our physical campuses. Here's the value proposition of being physically present with us. And it's acknowledging that, yes, those digital options are great and they're free in many instances, but there are profound benefits that come to work with us. And so, really foundational of this turnaround is specifically as it relates to technical careers, is first of all acknowledging the stigmas that exist around this particular career path. I know when I was growing up, this career path wasn't, it's not valid now, but this was something that people that weren't cut out for college that they went to do because the perception was that the jobs didn't pay as well or they weren't as glamorous. And the thing is that old habits or old mindsets die very hard. And as the numbers we're going to go through later on show, that perspective is false now. It is just straight up false. We also want to highlight on a local basis the earning potential of these different jobs. And I say local because as we're going to get into later, when you talk national, you're leaving a lot of value and perception sway on the table. We're going to have some very, very clear examples of that. And the reason why now, just as background, I personally don't have much affiliation with the trade and technical careers. My job is to conduct analysis and report upon things that I see in the market. And this was something that jumped out to me about 5 years ago. And as I looked at this, with that ROI being so important, there are two key factors here that really work in favor of the technical education schooling and career path. And that's like one, as Steve was saying, there's a significantly lower educational cost to get things going. And you combine that with income potential that is equal to, or in many instances greater than, many white collar jobs or other jobs that you're going to get out of a four-year institution. That's the foundation for excellent and very transparent ROI.
Yeah, that's great, Jason. Thanks for that background and the emphasis too on how things are transforming based on digital or distance, remote learning. That's another aspect that's also impacting this whole arena here. So let's do this. So can you go a little bit deeper too, and let's go over what is a trade job, right?
Yeah,
What
for
are
sure.
those careers? And then maybe dig in a little bit more on what are some of the why are some of these kind of negative legacy perceptions of them, why they exist, etc.
For sure. Yeah. So trade jobs are kind of nebulous. The definition, it will vary based upon the person that you talk to. But as we'll go through here, the way that we define them, we'll outline those jobs. They make up roughly a quarter of the U.S. workforce. So this is a very sizable piece of the U.S. workforce. These are specialized skills that are really important for infrastructure, manufacturing, and services. And I think really important to emphasize here is the infrastructure piece. We've got massive infrastructure improvements that are needed all across the United States for these aging bridges, rails, transportation lanes, all of this. We need people to do the work. Hands-on work, you're typically doing some kind of apprenticeship, you're getting a certification, you're doing training. And then believe it or not, that this is one of the biggest perception changes that people have. They look at these jobs as being not very tech centric. That's actually not true at all anymore. There are a lot of these jobs, even jobs like, a carpenter, there is more of a technological component coming into this, albeit less so, but there's a lot of tech creeping into these types of jobs. And this is surprising to a lot of people. So this is how we define trade jobs. Again, definitions will vary, but the first one that we look at, this is standard occupation code. So this is a top level grouping of jobs. 47 is construction and extraction occupations. As you can surmise, roughly 75% of these jobs are in the construction industry. 49 is installation, maintenance, and repair. Think like your HVAC techs. That's a really common one. This is really heavily concentrated in retail trade, construction, manufacturing, and real estate. 51, that's my wheelhouse. That's production occupations. Anybody that's involved in manufacturing. As we say there, a majority of these jobs are in manufacturing. And then the final one is transportation and material moving occupations, 53. This is really heavily focused on, movement of goods, your e-commerce orders, moving raw materials all over the place, food, basically anything related to the supply chain. So even though, like I tell people, these aren't maybe the most glamorous jobs in the world, these are the things that keep our country literally running. They make the
Mhm.
stuff, they ship the stuff, they build the stuff, all that. And it's very, very, very important.
Yeah.
So as we look at the career and technical education perceptions, this is something from the Governmental Accountability Office. The references there in the bottom, but they identified a couple key issues that are facing, just CTE programs in general. And while there are many here, and some of them are beyond the bounds, actually, many of them are beyond the bounds of this conversation, the one that we're really digging in on is this negative perceptions of CTE. And the reason for that is because if you've got a limited pool of people, like you had said, that are coming out of high school that are considering different career paths, winning that attention battle, so they're even considering your career path or this a particular career path, is of paramount importance because this pie is getting smaller, and we hope that that'll change. But the thing is if we can't figure out how to market the earning potential of these jobs, you're not going to win your fair share of the pie. You're actually going to have a smaller chunk of a shrinking pie, and that doesn't bode well for these types of programs. So what we're proposing is, let's figure out how we do promote the earning potential and career potential of this path so that we can get a bigger chunk of that smaller pie so that they at least consider this career path. And parents have a major, major influence on this. So that's another major part of that we're talking to. Some of the factors that are driving these negative program perceptions, there's really two key pieces from parents and students. The first one is just a poor understanding of local career and earning prospects. There's an example I'll get to later on, but one of my favorite stories is real. I asked somebody recently, what do you think a mid high level plumber makes in the Chicago market? And they're like, I don't know, 60, $70,000. I'm like, would you be surprised to learn if it was about 150 to $200,000? And they're like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. And I go, yes, actually, that is 100% feasible. And that's an example of the perception gap. They don't have new information presented to them on a regular basis to recalibrate their perceptions. And then the other perception, which again is false, is CTE programs are for students who underperform academically. That simply is not true, especially now with many of these career paths demanding more of a tech focus. You get into machining and things like that. There's the physical component, but it's a very heavy technological. So it's evolved, and these perceptions need to reflect these evolutions. The problem is that in general, CTE programs struggle to promote these types of things at scale to new audiences that maybe aren't already considering this career path. And that's what we're looking to help with. And so, as we said, our goal is to help every CTE program better communicate the benefits, the job prospects, the earning potentials, all these things that we've talked about within their local area, because that's where you're going to pull talent from. You're going to pull that talent from that local workforce in the community that's right there.
Yeah, Jason, just while you're doing that, I had flashbacks to when I was in high school, and that second point you mentioned is critical about, if you're not good academically, so to speak, then consider the trades, right? It was always seen as sort of, you can't make it here, so this, and I think that does such a disservice to kids who may have an aptitude for mechanics, welding, what have you,
Yes.
and they don't see it as a viable path, right? So they may
Yes.
get pushed to something that maybe is not a good fit for them. So I'm glad you highlighted that, but I was just thinking back to my high school days, like, oh boy, I remember
Well,
kind of that perception, which is wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to your point, this is really quick. This is an actual story I had last week. A young kid I was talking to told me that he was going into machining, I believe it was. And I said, what other careers were you considering? And he goes, I was looking at like data engineering, software engineering, all these other things that were technically on the other opposite end of the spectrum. I go, why did you pick this path? And he goes, well, I've been very fortunate. I have some great advisors, and they told me, they're like, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, AI is probably going to do a lot of that work for you. And the need for software engineers, it'll still be there, but they're not going to need this many. They're going to need this many. And that
Mhm.
puts you in a very difficult position. And he said, I still like the numbers. But I also like the mechanical components. So I made the decision when I looked at the numbers, I can actually make a lot of money still going this way, but I have really high degree of security in my job. At least it's perceived.
Great point.
Yeah. So, what's driving this? I'm not going to say anything new. Anybody who's watching this is know the U.S. trade sector is facing really serious workforce shortfalls. And it's really at a very critical juncture. Now, the exact magnitude of these shortfalls differs based upon your definition of the trades, but it's in the millions, and in some instances, it may be as high as like 9 or 10 million. Drivers for this include something we're all aware of: the retirement wave. Baby boomers retiring. They comprise a huge portion of this workforce, and they're retiring to the tune of like 20 or 30,000 a day, I believe it is. The educational system focus. You got a long-standing emphasis on 4-year degrees. That's diverted a lot of really potentially talented workers away from this particular path. You've got the persistent perception issues, which we've talked about. White collar work is better. I would say, as somebody who is very well tied into the AI space, and as a white collar professional myself, this AI stuff really does present a very sizable threat, and that's not just like headline fear mongering. That's real. So they're challenging that perception issue, the lack of exposure, kind of like you were talking about, Steve. Kids just aren't exposed to this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
And if you're not exposed to it, how do you know if you even like it? That's a very, very large challenge. And then there's other things like technological advances, economic cycles, your training investment, globalization, immigration policies, all this other stuff. So all of this to say, it's a complex challenge. I think everybody watching this knows that, but it is also a challenge that is going to present some very profound issues if we can't figure out how to address it. So yeah, let's do.
No, that's great. I just wanted to I want to say one of the reasons I was really excited to talk to Jason about this topic is I've seen some of the work he's done, and I think one of the things that's really critical to really make the case for a trade career is understanding the return on investment. So I know you're going to jump into it now, but I'm really excited about the next couple slides you're going to go over here and talk and dig into this. But yeah, tell us more about the hard numbers behind it. So it's not just you just saying that, you got some numbers behind this.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that I've observed consistently as an outsider looking in. People make these statements. The earning potential is great career prospects. That's great. But to convince people of these things, you need to provide hard facts. It's one of these things where you just cannot persuade people. Okay, how good is it? Because in my head, I'm doing the calculus to say, well, how does that compare to the other things that already have mind share with me? So this is a really, really important component of that persuasive argument. And so, the trade job wages, just to give you some high level, and I'm going to go into a bit. National level numbers are a good starting point. But we got to go deeper. But at the national level, 78% of all trade jobs offer above $30,000. That's entry level pay, right? The 10th percentile pay is essentially entry level roles. 40% of these jobs offer mid career pay above $50,000. And then 14% of these jobs offer expert level or more seasoned individual pay above $100,000. Now, again, those are national figures. Just as context, the U.S. real median personal income in 2023 was $42,220. So the point of this is that at the national level, across all jobs, once you get to mid-career, you're going to be making a sizable amount more than the U.S. real median personal income, which I think bodes very well for career earning prospects. But as we're going to get into a little bit, those numbers the numbers vary significantly based upon what metro you're in, what career path you're going after. But as I said, national pay figures, they're used often because they're easy, but they are not the best approach for communicating the value of the trades locally. And again, I'm going to come back to, because if you're a program here, you're not pulling people from New York. Probably if you're in Chicago, you're not pulling from New York or San Francisco. You're pulling from the local area. So that message has to be contextualized locally. So there's a lot going on here. I'm going to break this down. So These are actual national level figures. You'll see up here job code, for the electricians. National level pay says entry is going to be around 40,000. The mid levels is 64,500, and then the expert level pay nationally is about $110,000. And then we just give a visual representation of that over to the right. Now, when we go down below, what I've done is I presented that mid-level pay on the national level as that dotted line that goes up and down. So you'll see at the bottom, we've got US average, $64,500. Now, what each of these circles represent is an individual metro market. The circle size represents the number of electricians that are in that particular market. And then we've just scattered them here. And then as you go from left to right, as you go further right, the higher the mid-level wage that gets paid in that particular market. So what I want to show you here is that the purpose of this is to highlight in one example that using national level figures can grossly misrepresent how much your actual job can get paid. And I'm going to give you one example here. And this one you can see national average 64,500. So you've got a kid that's like, well, how much do electricians get paid to do this job? They reference some national number and says it's 64.5. But in the Chicago market, mid-level pay is actually $106,000. That is a $40,000 difference. And if you're not communicating that, the actual pay is 106, not 64, that gap is big enough to possibly persuade somebody to actually consider that a viable career path. Now, this is just one example. With this type of spread of pay between different markets and different jobs, it's applicable for every single occupation. In certain industries like a Dallas or a Houston, electricians might be paid below the national average. But for other jobs like a welder or oil, so anything related to the oil industry, they're going to pay significantly more. And so the reason why this is super important is because if the national level figures miss this nuance, they don't have the ability to persuade people with market realities. And so this is just an example of how, when you break it down, you should be communicating at what's happening at your local level. I just talked about welders. Here is an actual example of how pay for welders, you can see it on the left there, occupation code 514121. This is the top 10 welding markets in the United States, ranked by jobs, 2024 jobs. You can see Houston is the biggest. And then you can see the spread of entry, mid, and expert level pay. That's pay across experience levels. So this is just another way to present the concept of saying that, if you're presenting, national level pay in Houston or, Minneapolis or New York, it's not going to represent the real market pay that's being paid for those different roles in that market. And that's why this is super, super important. Armed with this information, you're more likely to persuade people with facts. So getting back to kind of the ROI equation is that, I break this down, and this is probably overly simplistic. So Steve, beat this up as you see here. But like, I look at this as just a basic equation of you've got the first piece that's working in favor of this particular career path and educational path is lower cost of education for four-year institutions. The numbers show that it is without question, non-debatable, that it is cheaper. Additionally, you have the ability to earn money and real-world experience while in school for many of these roles. Not all of them, but many of them. As we haven't shown the analysis here, but I have done the analysis separately. It says the earning potential for many of these jobs is as good as, if not better, than most of the white collar roles across experience levels. When you get into management level roles, those are going to be different, but there's less and less of those as you go higher up the totem pole. Protection, a lot of protection from job automation due to AI. This is a major risk factor for many white collar careers. They're not going to go away completely, but instead of needing 50 people to do something, we're going to need 10, and those 10 will be augmented by AI. Most of these jobs are going to be protected from AI, and once the robots come, we're probably going to have a different problem altogether with, Skynet. Um, and in addition, we've got really favorable long-term workforce trends, meaning there's going to be a lot of stability. There's probably going to be continued upward trends in wage growth because you're not going to have enough supply demand, right? Basic economics equation. So you're going to have a lot of stability and great earning potential. And all of that, when we put it together, it paints a very compelling picture for strong technical education ROI. So,
Hey, Jason, just
yeah,
real
yeah,
quick
go ahead.
though, 'cause I'm not beating this up, but embedded in this, I think, is, and maybe you hint at it though, isn't it true as well that it's common sense. A 4-year degree takes 4 years to get through, and then you start earning money. Typically, these are shorter, 2 years, and maybe there's an apprenticeship, whatever else. So you're earning money faster as well, correct?
That is correct. And so, to
Yeah.
your point, this is part of the ROI modeling solution that we're co-developing here. Is
Hmm.
breaking out these economics, saying,
Hmm.
here's kind of like your cost, here's your earning potential, to bring very clear optics to, you go to a 4-year degree. I'm just going to make number up to make it easy. You've spent $100,000, let's say, and then you come out and maybe you can get a $50,000 or $40,000 a year job. Versus you go to a 2-year institution, you spend $20,000. During
Hmm.
that time, you made $10,000. So now you're at a net expenditure for education of 10,000. And then over those 2 years where you're now earning, you're coming out making 50 grand. So by the time now you compare, instead of being 100 grand in debt, you're 90 grand ahead. And the trajectory for the wage growth is on par, if not better than what you would have gotten with the 4-year. So it's bringing this modeling together so that people can see, here's how the numbers shake out, but not just that. Here's how they shake out for the program you want to pursue,
Hmm.
for your local market, with certain assumptions in place. So you get a really clear idea of what is likely to unfold. And this is basic economic and financial due diligence. Before you make any investment,
Yeah.
you should do this type of analysis.
Yeah. That's great. So great information. And again, one of the reasons we really wanted to have this discussion is I think there's some really, really cool stuff around these numbers. So what's next? So if I'm interested to learn more, what can
Yeah.
someone do?
Yeah. So I think the best thing to do is, if you're interested in learning more about this, we're in the pilot phase for this right now. And we are bringing programs on board to help us refine the offerings that we've talked about here, specifically the ROI communication, local earning potential communication. I would say the best thing to do is to email me. We're going to have our email on the next slide. Reach out to me directly, and let's have a conversation. It's one of these things where the goal is to help you do this locally, communicate the value locally. And there's many parts of that. The first part is the information, but then it's like, how do you disseminate that information? How do you share it with others? And that's an area that we do have specialization in. And this is an example of just some of the content that we currently license to schools to help them communicate the value of different degrees. This is an example for machinists in the Chicago and Naperville metro market. Basically what we're showing here is there's 3 main components. It's the occupation summary, meaning, well, how much have wages gone up? How much will they go up over the next 12 months? Section 2 is the wage summary. What are those pay trends over time and across experience levels? You can see on the right there, orange is entry level, the green is median, and then the expert level is the blue. And then on the bottom there, we've got how many people are doing this job in this market. So it gives you a very good sense of not just a point in time what's going on, but what is that trend looking at over time. In this example here in Chicago, you can see that those retirements are having a very profound impact on the local machinists in the Chicago market, which isn't surprising. So really the idea here is that this is designed to, in one page, give you a nice, clean overview of historical wage trends across experience levels, forecasted wage trends by experience levels, and then the historical and forecasted employment levels. So again, that one pager, so you know what's going on, you can get a real good lay of the land of what's going on with this particular occupation.
No, this is great. Jason, thank you so much for going over kind of this work you've been doing for the last few years. I think it's, as someone who works in, with higher education institutions, I mean, this is critically important. As most folks, if we talked about, higher ed's going through a transformation. Our students come out of high school, et cetera, are looking for new options. And I think this information helps contradict a lot of these old legacy perceptions we have of these career paths that are very lucrative, as the title says, but they're also very satisfying as well. And I think people got to look at everything, right? Not just shut out one area. So Jason, your work, I think, is really kind of bringing light to that, which is great. You can see our information here as far as how to reach out to us. Jason's email's on here. Reach out to me as well with any follow-up questions. And thank you all for joining. Thank you, Jason, again. This was great.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, my friend.